At her own birthday party, Emma watched her boyfriend of 3 years drop to one knee for her younger sister. Humiliated and heartbroken, she fled to the balcony where a mysterious billionaire made her an offer that shattered everything she thought she knew about that night. Dominic Ashford didn't just propose marriage, he proposed revenge. But as Emma dove into his dark world of contracts and secrets, she discovered the betrayal ran deeper than a stolen proposal. Her sister wasn't the villain. Her boyfriend wasn't the mastermind. And Dominic? He was hiding the most dangerous secret of all. This is 15-minute binge watch. One story. One obsession. 15 minutes. Let's begin. The champagne tower glittered under the crystal chandeliers of the Meridian Hotel ballroom, each glass catching light like a promise about to shatter. Emma Hartley stood near the dessert table, smoothing down her emerald dress for the 10th time that evening, watching guests mill through her 28th birthday celebration with champagne flutes and practiced smiles. She hadn't wanted this lavish party, but her mother insisted, and her boyfriend Marcus had been strangely enthusiastic about the venue, the guest list, the elaborate decorations that must have cost more than Emma made in 3 months at the art gallery. Marcus stood across the room talking to her younger sister Sophie, his hand resting on Sophie's lower back in a way that made Emma's stomach turn with something she kept trying to dismiss as paranoia. They'd been spending a lot of time together lately, Marcus claiming he was helping Sophie with job applications, Sophie insisting she just needed career advice from someone successful. Emma had swallowed her suspicions like bitter medicine, telling herself she was being insecure, jealous, small. The music shifted to something slower, more intimate, and Emma watched Marcus pull away from Sophie, walking toward the small stage where the band played. Her heart lifted despite herself. Maybe she'd been wrong. Maybe tonight he'd finally do what she'd been hoping for, what 3 years together had been building toward. Marcus took the microphone, his movie star smile gleaming as he surveyed the crowd. Emma's mother grabbed her arm, squeezing with excitement. The room fell silent. "Thank you all for coming tonight," Marcus began, his voice smooth as expensive whiskey. "We're here to celebrate someone very special, someone who's brought immense joy and light into my life." He paused, his eyes scanning the crowd, landing not on Emma but somewhere to her left. "These past few months have shown me what I really want, who I really want to spend my life with." Emma stepped forward, her heels clicking on marble, her heart hammering against her ribs. Marcus descended from the stage, moving through the parted crowd, and Emma's smile began to freeze as she realized he wasn't walking toward her. He stopped in front of Sophie, who stood there in a silver dress that matched her wide, shocked eyes that didn't look shocked at all when Emma really studied them, eyes that held something rehearsed. "Sophie Hartley," Marcus said, dropping to one knee as gasps rippled through the ballroom. "Will you marry me?" The room spun. Emma heard her mother's sharp intake of breath, heard the whispers starting like wildfire, heard Sophie's delighted squeal as she said yes, yes, yes. The ring caught the light as Marcus slid it onto Sophie's finger, and Emma saw it was the vintage setting she'd shown him months ago, the one she'd fallen in love with at the antique store, the one she'd photographed and sent him with hearts and hoping. Emma's legs moved without permission, carrying her backward, away from the scene, away from Sophie's arms around Marcus's neck, away from her mother's confusion turning to forced congratulations because what else could she do in front of 200 guests? Emma's father stood motionless, his face carved from stone, but he didn't come after her as she stumbled toward the balcony doors. The November air bit through her dress as Emma gripped the railing, looking down at the city spread below like a circuit board of light and motion. Tears blurred her vision but she refused to let them fall, refused to give this moment that power. Crying would be too predictable. Emma spun around. A man stood in the balcony doorway, half in shadow, holding 2 glasses of champagne with the casual confidence of someone who owned the air he breathed. He was tall, dark-haired, probably in his mid-30s, wearing a suit that cost more than Emma's car. She'd noticed him earlier, a guest she didn't recognize, someone who must have been invited by Marcus's business connections. "I'm not crying," Emma said, hating how her voice shook. "No," the man agreed, stepping closer. "You're calculating." "I recognize that look." He offered her a champagne flute. Dominic Ashford. The name detonated in Emma's mind. Dominic Ashford, the real estate magnate who'd been buying up half the city's historic properties. Dominic Ashford, whose face appeared in business magazines beside articles about his ruthless negotiation tactics and mysterious personal life. Dominic Ashford, who was absolutely not someone Marcus would know well enough to invite to a birthday party. "Why are you here?" Emma asked, taking the champagne because she needed something to hold. "Your boyfriend owed me a favor." Dominic leaned against the railing, studying her with dark eyes that seemed to catalog every detail. "I collected tonight by attending the spectacle. Though I admit, I didn't expect it to be quite so entertaining. My humiliation is entertaining. Your sister's desperation is entertaining. Your boyfriend's mediocrity is entertaining. Your humiliation." His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "That's tragic. And I don't enjoy tragedy." Emma should have walked away. Should have told this arrogant stranger to leave her alone. Instead, she heard herself ask, "What favor?" "The kind that involves money and mistakes." "Marcus gambles, did you know?" "Not well. He accumulated significant debt at some establishments I own. I offered him a way out, bring me to your party, introduce me to some of your mother's social connections, and we'd call his debt forgiven." The champagne tasted like ash. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Look at him in there." Dominic gestured toward the ballroom where Marcus and Sophie were surrounded by well-wishers. "Look at his watch, his suit, his shoes. All purchased in the last month. All beyond his salary. Your sister didn't steal your boyfriend, Emma. She bought him with family money, paying off his debts in exchange for the proposal. This whole thing was transactional." Emma's mind raced through the past months, Sophie's sudden interest in Marcus's career, the expensive gifts Marcus had been giving her that she'd assumed came from bonuses, her mother's unusually generous offers to help with wedding planning before there was even an engagement. The pieces assembled into a picture that made her sick. "Why are you telling me this?" Dominic set down his untouched champagne. "Because I'm about to make you an offer, and I need you to understand your current position has no dignity left to preserve. You can walk back in there, smile through toasts, and spend the rest of your life as the sister who wasn't chosen. Or," he reached into his jacket, pulling out a small velvet box that made Emma's breath catch, "you can marry me instead." "You're insane." "I'm practical. I need a wife for 6 months to secure a property deal that requires married ownership. You need to not be the abandoned birthday girl who lost her boyfriend to her sister. We both get what we want." Emma laughed, the sound brittle and sharp. "Why would I marry a stranger for revenge?" "Not revenge," Dominic corrected. "Strategy. But I'm not proposing here. Too private. If you agree, we walk back inside, I make a scene that overshadows theirs completely, and you spend the next 6 months living in my penthouse, attending events as Mrs. Ashford, and collecting a $2 million payout when we divorce. After that, you're free, and rich enough to start whatever life you want, wherever you want. This is crazy. This is a business arrangement. I've had my lawyers draft paperwork. Everything is legal, clean, and temporary." He opened the box, revealing a diamond so large it seemed to pull light from the surrounding darkness. "The question is whether you have the courage to reclaim your narrative, or if you'd rather let them win." Emma looked through the glass doors at Sophie, radiant and triumphant. At Marcus, smug and satisfied. At her mother, already planning a wedding that should have been Emma's. At her father, checking his phone, disengaged as always. At the guests who would leave tonight with a story about poor Emma Hartley, thrown over for her younger, prettier sister. She thought about the art gallery where she worked for barely enough to cover her studio apartment rent. Thought about the paintings she never had time to create, the dreams she'd shelved to be supportive, accommodating, small enough to fit into Marcus's vision of an appropriate girlfriend. Thought about how carefully she'd been living, how safely, how pointlessly. Emma took the ring box from Dominic's hand. "One condition," she said. "When we walk in there, you make it spectacular." Dominic's smile turned predatory. "I wouldn't have it any other way." They entered the ballroom like a storm front, Dominic's hand firm on Emma's lower back, guiding her through the crowd that was still congratulating Sophie and Marcus. Emma's heart hammered but her spine was steel as Dominic led her straight to the happy couple. "Marcus," Dominic said, his voice cutting through the chatter. "Congratulations on your engagement. I hope you'll forgive me for borrowing your party for my own announcement." Before Marcus could respond, before Sophie could process what was happening, Dominic turned to Emma and dropped to one knee in the center of the ballroom, in front of everyone, holding up the ring that made Sophie's look like a toy from a vending machine. "Emma Hartley," Dominic said, his voice carrying to every corner of the silent room, "I know we've kept our relationship private, but I can't wait another moment. You are the most extraordinary woman I've ever met, talented, intelligent, beautiful in ways that matter. I love you. Marry me." The silence stretched like taffy. Emma felt every eye on her, felt her mother's confusion, Sophie's dawning horror, Marcus's shock. She thought about saying no, about running, about choosing safety over this insane gamble. Instead, she heard herself say, "Yes." The ring slid onto her finger, heavy and warm and impossibly real. Dominic stood, pulling her into a kiss that was clearly for show but felt like falling off a cliff, terrifying and exhilarating and impossible to take back. The room erupted in chaos, guests rushing forward, her mother's voice rising in questions, Sophie's face going pale. Emma pulled back from the kiss, meeting Dominic's dark eyes, seeing something flicker there that might have been approval or might have been warning. "We'll be leaving now," Dominic announced to the room. "Emma and I have arrangements to make. Sophie, Marcus, enjoy your celebration." He led Emma toward the exit, her hand clasped in his, and she didn't look back at her sister, at Marcus, at the life she was walking away from. They made it to the lobby before her father's voice stopped them. "Emma, wait." She turned. Her father stood there alone, his expression unreadable. "Dad, His name isn't Dominic Ashford," her father said quietly. "It's Dominic Castellano. He changed it 15 years ago after his family's company collapsed. Marcus didn't invite him. I did." Emma's blood turned to ice. "What?" Her father looked at Dominic. "Tell her the rest." Dominic's jaw tightened. "Your father owns the property I need to acquire. The one my family lost when we went bankrupt. He's refused to sell to me for 5 years. Tonight, he offered me a deal, marry you for 6 months, prove I've changed, and he'll sell me the building for a fraction of market value." Emma yanked her hand from Dominic's grip. "This was all planned. My own father set this up." "Sophie has your mother's ambition but none of the sense," her father said. "She was always going to choose money and status. Marcus was always going to choose whoever offered the most. I couldn't stop that without causing a scandal. But I could give you an exit strategy and simultaneously test whether Dominic has become the kind of man who deserves to reclaim his legacy. By using me as a test." Emma's voice shook with fury. "By giving you a choice," her father corrected. "You can walk away right now. The engagement is fake. The paperwork hasn't been signed. But if you stay, if you see this through, you'll have $2 million and the knowledge that you didn't let them break you. You'll also have answers about what really happened the night Dominic's father died." Emma looked between the two men. "What does that mean?" "My father committed suicide when our company collapsed," Dominic said flatly. "But there were always questions about who pushed us into bankruptcy. Questions about deals that fell through at suspicious times, investors who pulled out after targeted rumors." Emma's father met her eyes. "I was one of those investors. And I've spent 15 years wondering if I made the right call." The lobby spun. Emma grabbed the back of a chair, steadying herself against revelations that kept crashing over her like waves. Her birthday party had become a stage for conspiracies she didn't understand, for vendettas and tests and manipulations that made Marcus and Sophie's betrayal look like child's play. "Why?" she whispered. "Why me?" "Because you're the only one in this family worth testing him with," her father said. "Sophie would accept the money and learn nothing. Your mother would turn it into a social strategy. But you're the only one who might actually see him clearly." Dominic stepped toward Emma, his expression softer than before. I won't lie to you again. Yes, your father arranged this. Yes, I need that property. But I also watched you tonight, before everything fell apart, and I saw someone living a half-life, making herself small, settling. The arrangement is real. The money is real. What happens between us during these 6 months, that can be whatever we make it. Emma looked down at the ring on her finger, at the diamond that caught light like a promise and a prison. She thought about Sophie's triumphant face, about Marcus's smug smile, about the art gallery she'd stayed at because it was safe, about the person she'd been becoming, careful and diminished and afraid. She thought about $2 million and 6 months living a life so different from her own it might as well be fiction. She thought about her father's calculated gamble and Dominic's hidden vendetta and all the ways this could destroy her completely. Then she thought about walking back into that ballroom, about smiling through her sister's wedding, about running into Marcus and Sophie for the rest of her life, always the one who wasn't chosen. Emma lifted her chin, meeting Dominic's eyes. 6 months, she said. Every clause in writing. Every secret on the table. And if I find out you're lying about anything else, I walk away with everything. Agreed, Dominic said immediately. Emma turned to her father. After this is over, you and I are going to have a very long conversation about boundaries. Her father almost smiled. I'd expect nothing less. Emma looked at the ring one more time, at the weight of it, the promise of it, the danger of it. Then she took Dominic's offered arm and walked through the hotel doors into the November night, into a future she couldn't predict, with a man she didn't trust, away from a life that had already broken her. Behind them, the party continued. Sophie and Marcus would have their moment, their celebration, their triumph. But Emma had something better. She had her own story now. And she was finally, terrifyingly, ready to write it herself. Some love save you. Others own you. If you crave dangerous billionaires and twisted romance, subscribe to 15-Minute Binge Watch. The next story starts soon. Don't miss it.